Everybody. Today we're here to talk about the future of blockchain gaming. So, quick show of hands. Does anyone in here consider themselves a gamer? Maybe you've heard of CryptoKitties or you play Fortnite? Okay, great. So we're 10 years into this blockchain industry as of January 3rd, and there's been billions of dollars of investment. There's been a ton of hype. But so far, there's really not that much real-world usage. And I personally believe that gaming is going to be a huge part of the next wave of mainstream adoption. So I've brought together here a panelist of traditional gaming industry veterans to talk about what the future is going to be like. And on my right, we have Randy Saaf. Saaf. CEO of Lucid. We have James Mayo, CEO of 8 Circuit Studios, and Cristian Gonzalez-CEO of MEGO. So I want to let you guys kick it off with about 90 seconds or so. Just give a quick background on yourself and your company.
Sure. My name is Randy Saaf. I run Lucid. We make the app game MLB Crypto Baseball. It's officially a licensed game with Major League Baseball. Go Dodgers!
Yeah.
So, yeah, we did the 40,000 NFT giveaway at Dodger Stadium a while back. Maybe some of you heard about. Before that, I had an iPhone gaming company. We were actually a launch partner with the App Store in 2008. So I had the blessing of picking the right horse with Apple. We had 14 of the first 100 free iPhone apps. So huge land grab. This was when free apps were not trendy. Everybody else had paid apps. Apple wanted everybody to do paid apps. We made the controversial at the time decision to make it free with no real good business model apart from advertising. Eventually that became the large ad network Ad Colony, which is the second largest mobile video ad network to Google today. And that was sold a couple years back to Opera MediaWorks. So anyways, we started Lucid kind of on the idea of doing frontier gaming again. Because we have the benefit of previous success. We could go into AAA PlayStation games. We could stay in the iPhone space, which is a gargantuan space. iPhone, Android. iPhone's doing about $70 billion a year in in-app purchases, and Android's doing another 40-50 billion. Makes crypto look small, and that's annual revenue and has a tailwind. It's probably my belief it's the most important part of the Apple business. But it's a gargantuan industry at this point. We decided we should go into an industry where we can see the entire playing field again, where the rules are being rewritten, and that seemed really interesting, and that's what led us to blockchain gaming.
Hey everybody, my name is James Mayo, and of 8 Circuit Studios. We come from the game industry, so my background is as a producer. Started at Nintendo in the 90s, went over to Microsoft for a number of years as they transitioned from their PC games group into the Xbox group. And we over the last couple of years, we're really trying to figure out how to get people onto blockchains because we just saw this tremendous value that they were offering, primarily in the ability to create a system where you had effectively trustless trust, where you didn't actually have to depend on another person or another institution to trust these transactions. And so we felt like games would be the best way to bring people in, and games is typically solving a lot of the heavy lifting problems that you'll see with user experience, solving a lot of technical issues. And generally speaking, gamers or people who are sort of oriented around games really love driving new technologies forward to give them the best possible gaming experiences. So we thought we could bring some of our experiences, AAA developers, into the blockchain space. And so we have a game out called Alien Arsenal, Battle for the Blockchain. That's our casual game, currently in the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then we're working on as close to AAA as we can get with a new product coming out called Project Genesis. First-person shooter, trying to implement as much of the Destiny experience as we can get. So it's a AAA game that's currently out. So
trading card game. The reason we do this is I personally and my coworkers were all trading card game fans since we were kids when they were physical. And in the transition to digital trading card games, we feel that they're not, they became worse because you cannot trade a Hearthstone card, for example, or any modern digital trading card game. So how come in a trading card game you cannot trade cards? So that's how we started with a frustration, and now we design a very good trading card game called Dark Wind. It's a pirate theme, which is inspired by Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone, but with also very innovative game mechanics and rules that I think you will find very fun. And our company started with iPhone games too, and we also are in the process of building an MMO which uses blockchain, specifically Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. That's a project that is going to take a lot more longer. And while we do that, we said that we want to do something smaller, and we started making that ones.
Thanks, guys. My name is Chris. I work at a company called Foundry, which is part of ConsenSys. We help companies design and market and launch compliant utility tokens and soon-to-be security token sales. And I'm also working on some internal gaming initiatives within ConsenSys that have yet to be announced. But before we get to the future of blockchain gaming, let's talk about kind of what's going on right now. It's been about a year since CryptoKitties first came on the scene. I think it had 10,000 users at the peak. Kind of proved out this concept of non-fungibility and non-fungible tokens. But really, there's not a lot of usage, right? Most of the users have kind of left, and there's just not a lot of depth in a lot of these games. So what's going on right now? What are these games doing right? What are they doing wrong? Randy.
Yeah, I mean, there's the old saying, history rhymes, it doesn't repeat. I think that when you look at CryptoKitties, that's not a reproducible business model in the sense that they got lightning in a bottle, it went viral, got a lot of attention on a lot of non-crypto people, got excited about the game, played it. It's definitely has lost a lot of its users since its peak. But you look at the iPhone space, and back in 2008, again, that's going by my own knowledge, my own experiences, and you saw the same thing in the iPhone space, that there were games that at the time were genre-defining, just didn't last the test of time. We had a marble game where you tilted your iPhone and rolled a marble around the screen, went through a labyrinth. I think it was called Labyrinth. And it had tons of downloads, and people were like, wow, this is like, the Wii was popular. You guys remember the Wii, first Wii, not the Wii U, but people thought that was the future of gaming, was swinging the iPhone around and tilting it. And, like we had a baseball pitching game we were thinking about with the iPhone and using the accelerometer. And so, you have these things that come out, and it really wasn't until Angry Birds came out. I'll be the first to admit, our games were not genre-defining. We had early games, had a ton of users because they were free. But Angry Birds was like the first game that really was like, wow, that's what a very good iPhone game looked like. It didn't use the accelerometer, had a nice use of the snapping feature of the screen. You could play it, you could get in and out of it quickly. And even that one wasn't what really ended up being the big money makers on the iPhone, being like Candy Crush and Clash of Clans and those style of games. So I think we're kind of at that phase if you look at it. Like, we're probably pre-Angry Birds still. But there's a lot of companies that are experimenting, and we just won't know until we see it. There'll be a lot of hindsight bias where we'll be like, oh, I always knew what a good iPhone game would look like. I mean, trust me, in 2008, people had no idea what a good iPhone game would look like.
Yeah, and I think to echo that, like, what you'll see, especially with engineers like us, we're really focused on the technology or the first couple of use cases. So we try and wedge in our case, it would be something like a game, right? You're wedging the game into the technology as opposed to really getting back to the fundamentals of game design. And I think that's one of the things that you're seeing is everybody went into the development looking at dApps, right? It's how do you get scripts running on the blockchain. And there's some really cool stuff that you can do with it, but I think if you shift, like in game design, you have sort of these different layers of places that you put data. And so one of them is going to be, like as you guys would know, put data in the graphics card, and so that's going to run the graphics, and you want a certain amount of data in the processor, a lot of it. Some's going to go onto the hard drive. And it's the same thing with blockchains. You have to figure out how this data model works, and once you do, you use it appropriately. And so I think what you're going to start seeing is people who are going to focus more, hearing about hybrid games. It's one of the areas that we're playing with right now, which is how do you spend all the time and energy on game design and then just touch the blockchain for what it's really good at. And there's a couple of things that I think you'll see that the blockchain is great for, and that users are really willing to endure a lot of pain for. And it gets down to transaction fees. A lot of people complain about it, and then this volatility that you'll experience in blockchain is another sore point. But if you create the experience for the gamer in such a way that it makes that pain worth it, I think you'll find that a lot of people are going to start opening up game design and development using blockchains for very specific reasons.
So that leads me to my next question. Did you want to add anything? So for the game developers, let's put like two buckets: the actual game developers and the end user gamers. What are the benefits if you're coming from the point of view of the game developer? And then the flip side is, as a gamer, why would you care about these blockchain features being layered into the game?
Yeah, I mean, so the different companies are coming at this from different angles. Most of the blockchain gaming companies are blockchain people who are super excited about blockchains and dApps, and they're just getting into gaming. We're a game studio who got into blockchain because of the qualities it can add to a game. But I have a sort of a strong belief, kind of echoing what Rose said over there, is that you're either going to get a really crappy game that's super blockchain heavy, or a fun game that has features of blockchain. The features of blockchain that can add something to gaming are true digital ownership, and and along those lines, the ability to sell the stuff you own. If you look at the software license, in a lot of ways, I look at it as a bit of a historical accident that we ended up where we're at. So you look back in the 70s and 80s when Microsoft first was selling Windows on a bunch of floppy disks. They didn't want General Electric installing Windows on 100 computers at their office, so they sold it as a license. This software licensing model has perpetuated, and it's now been over 30 years that consumers have become intuitively knowledgeable about not owning software. If I give you an MP3, I have the MP3, nobody cares who has the original MP3. Same thing with JPEGs, or same thing with other types of media formats. If I give you my Bitcoin, I don't have my Bitcoin anymore. I'm sad I don't have my Bitcoin. So, in the same way, the software license, in an ability of the publisher trying to maintain real and control, it's continued on. So now, today, when you have your iPhone, you own the glass, you own the metal, you own all the electronics of the iPhone, but you have a license to use iOS. And it's not only just a license, it's kind of a crappy license to a consumer because they can update it and change it every 6 months. And if you don't agree to it, you can't even use your phone anymore. So, for the first time in history, blockchain creates the opportunity for true digital ownership. Now you say, well, again, consumers don't have an intuition around this, so they're not really demanding this at this moment. But you take it to another aspect of their life, like their car. If I told somebody, hey, you own that car, but you can't change the paint color, you can't sell it, can't give it to your kids when you die, you'd be like, that's crazy, I own the car. But I have a lease. If I have a lease to a car, then I don't expect I can change the paint color. I don't expect I can give it to my kids when I die. I think that same intuition will carry very naturally into the digital ownership phase of gaming, where if I have a fantasy game, I'm not saying free-to-play gaming is going to go away. I'm not saying the digital license is going to go away. But we've already seen CryptoKitties selling kitties for over $100,000. People buying sports teams in our MLB crypto game for $20,000 plus. People paying tens of thousands of dollars in our space game, Crypto Space Commander. We've seen that when you introduce true digital ownership, it unlocks a max value that consumers are willing to pay because, again, much like cars or any other houses, if you're willing to pay more for ownership than leasing. So that's the element that I'm excited about. And honestly, I don't even think in 10 years' time, the consumer's even going to be referring to it as blockchain gaming or crypto gaming or any of these things. We call our stuff crypto baseball because this is where the era we're in. But that's like, I used to call a website a http://www site. Now if I say, I'm going to Forbes, you assume I mean Forbes.com. And I think this is the same thing with digital ownership in games. When people, like your normal non-crypto people are going to be like, just understanding, oh, do you own it or are you leasing it? You play Fortnite, you love the game, you have this special gun. Oh, do you own the gun or is it just a lease to use the gun? I don't know what the terminology would be, but it'll be something along those lines.
Yeah, I think there's two things that Randy was saying. So the first one, in terms of developers versus gamers, I think what you're talking about is these evolutionary models. So there's a bunch of experiments going on. So game developers, I think, are going to start moving into the space when they start seeing some of these evolutionary models for some of the earliest pioneers who are in the space start being successful in things that they're interested in. And so there's a couple, like the business model that you've got is successful, right? You're sustainable. Another one that's really interesting, it's we're at a bit of a headwind right now, but it's this new funding, right? Crowdsourced funding. That's an area where it's really exciting to game developers. But crypto right now has a fairly negative reputation on the gaming side. Gamers are cynical anyways, so if they can hate on something, they're going to hate on it. Right now, crypto is hateable, so I think you're going to start seeing some motion, though, when some of the bigger players get into the space. And I can't speak for Nintendo or Sony, but Microsoft, from what I understand, they're fairly advanced in terms of what they're working on in the blockchain space. And so they're looking very hard at blockchains. And they did something very similar with Xbox, because they came from PC. They actually had a lot of deep experience in multiplayer games. And they took all of that experience and put it into their console system. So they got a huge head start in the console space. They were basically, I don't want to say they unseated Nintendo, but they gave them a run for the money in the early days. And then after that, they really accelerated this quality of their console lab. And I think you're going to see the same thing in the blockchain space. So that's developers. I think you're going to see some motion there. And then I just wanted to talk one more thing that Randy was saying. We talk about ownership. And game developers, they definitely understand, and gamers too, understand ownership in a very specific way, especially around licensing. They kind of don't really get that it is a walled garden that they're participating in. But I think the two things that sort of tack onto that I think will really help both gamers and developers to shift their thinking around blockchains is this idea of experience and expression. And that's what you're really looking to do with any digital asset when these conversations come up. You hear a lot of talk about NFTs, and that's non-fungible tokens. And the ability to exchange those tokens with your friends or speculate on those tokens to gain some sort of profit. When you look at how gamers really get attached to things, it's really about their characters. And that's the first thing that they deeply care about. And it's the reason why Fortnite, I think they're at an $8 billion company right now. And those are characters that they have, quote unquote, but they are dressing them up in skins, right? This is about expressing who these gamers are as individuals. And so they're willing to spend inordinate amounts of money on that peacocking aspect of the game. There's another thing that they actually do too, and it's very, very lucrative right now for Epic, and that's the playbooks. So if you guys know how Fortnite works, effectively you have these books, you go through and you accomplish all these achievements, and then you get awards, and then you get to get little badges that go into your playbook. And kids love this because not only do they get to show, the sort of creative, cosmetic expressions of their character, they can also demonstrate, look what I did, look what I accomplished, and share that story or series of stories with their friends. So when you think about value, that's really what gamers are valuing with their tokens. It's this association of experience and expression.
Just to put that in context, Fortnite is selling about $300 million a month in these skins. And Cristian, I wanted to ask you specifically, can you talk to this idea of collectability and being able to trade your assets from the point of view of a trading card game?
Oh, okay. Can I add just one thing? I think from the player's perspective, I think players don't care about cryptocurrency or blockchain. They really don't care about it. They just want better games. They just want different games, new types of games, new types of experience, compelling games. And from us, from our perspective as developers, building for blockchain is kind of building for a new console. It's building for a new platform. And we have other types of restrictions, other types of rules in this new console that we are able to build new forms of gaming, new types of game economies, and that is how we are able to make different types of games that players will be interested in. They will not, players don't switch to a new game because of the business model. You know, it's like they switch because they're fun, they're compelling, they're something new. And blockchain, Ethereum, and Bitcoin, and perhaps new ventures that we don't know yet, change the rules. And when the rules change, we can make new types of game. I'm sorry, what was your question?
So you're building a card game called Dark Winds.
Yes.
Can you talk to the importance of being able to trade and actually own your own cards to gamers?
Yeah, and the trading card games that's the name. I think it's a bad irony that in digital trading card games, you cannot trade cards. So that's a part of the experience. The part of the experience of you against others who are building decks,